Oh, hey fellow Lost Souls. Welcome to the 10th World. On this channel, I discuss the factions that build, craft, and engineer the worlds we explore in our games, movies, and stories. Today, we're talking about the lore of the forest. Specifically about how the forest, and all the things we harvest from it, are extremely important in our journey through the 10th World. And also, not in the 10th World. As a warning, the video may contain spoilers for the story of Valheim. Alright, let's get into it. The forests of the world have always been strange places to humans used to living in cities and cultivated lands. Everything around you is alive and moving. Wind whistling through the leaves and branches, mud and roots and fertile soil at your feet, and the feeling that eyes are always watching. The forests of the 10th World are no different, although the life they're filled with is often malevolent, and the eyes you feel glow blue. Trolls thunder across the landscape, and skeletons wait in the ruins to cut your head from your shoulders. We can't avoid going, though. We need wood for our homes and to fuel our fires for cooking. These things we get from the forest keep us alive, both here and in the 10th World. The forest and its mysteries are a part of us, and our lives are intertwined with the living beings and spirits we find there. What of those spirits? What did the trees say? Or the wind? Did our ancestors hear the voices of their gods in them? Or of the dead? The peoples living during the Viking Age cut and shaped wood for building to such an extent that many forested areas still show signs of the changes to the landscape. The Norse people traveled widely and knew the names of many trees. Their carpenters and sculptors were masters of the many ways in which wood could be worked and shaped. Knowing how a type of wood reacts to cutting and carving, bending and loading is extremely important. If you build a house with wood poorly cut and aged, very shortly it'll twist and warp. If you carve an intricate pattern in a type of wood that's not well suited to this form of working, then your carving will crack and fall apart. Wood was also used as a source of fuel for fires to heat homes, as well as for furnaces and forges in the form of charcoal. The warriors during this age were famous for their iron and steel weapons and armor, made in forges fueled by charcoal. And of course, trees were a central theme in Norse mythology. The names and forms of the trees are mentioned in many poems and stories. The ash tree being most venerated, it seems, as the world tree is of this variety, as is the tree on which a particular god made a sacrifice. Trees were mythical indeed, and not just as a source of wood to the ancient people who lived among them. They appeared in legends and tales, in the myths of gods and monsters. Their lore was important to the tellers of stories, but also to the hewers and shapers of homes and ships. Knowing your trees is important, and without this knowledge, your house would not stand and your ship would not sail. When traveling the 10th World, we must prepare to defend against the elements such as rain, wind, and frost. We also have to stand against the monsters that come out from the dark places. And of course, we have to ready ourselves to battle the Forsaken to prove ourselves worthy of moving on. Wood then is needed. We'll have to build roofs and walls to stay dry and warm, pens and fences to keep our livestock. We'll need battlements and defenses to prevent attacks, and long planks from which to construct our ships. We'll also need handles and poles for our tools and weapons, wood to be bent for our bows and cut thin for our arrows, and sturdy planks cut, shaped, and painted for our shields. Our first tools will be from wood and stone. We can use the branches and sticks that lie at our feet and not pay much attention to what type of tree they come from. They're sturdy enough for now. We fell trees and cut them into bits from which we build our first homes. This is wood. We don't know its name, it's just wood, and that's good enough. It'll serve us in many ways, from making spear and arrow shafts, crude bows, and simple tools. We can also build our beds and our walls with it, create battlements and ladders and roofs. We can turn it into benches and tables and beams. We can burn it for fuel and turn it into charcoal for our forges. It keeps us warm and alive. Though we find it unsuitable for some tasks, large planks to fit the needs of sailing ships cannot be made from it, nor can it be finely carved and worked for vessels and tankards. We must, therefore, learn to harvest fine wood from birch or oak trees. With the knowledge of this material, can we begin creating the things that make life in the 10th World easier, allow us to explore further, and aid us in combat. We find, though, that our defenses are being overrun, and our buildings do not fare well in these assaults. The simple wooden structures are not enough. We must find and work core wood from the dense trees of the Black Forest. With it, we can construct strong beams, and our houses and battlements will stand stronger than ever. What of something even stronger? Older, denser, for plates of armor and hafts of mighty weapons. In our travels, we'll find ancient bark, a material that's firm and unyielding, cut from the ancient trees growing in swamplands, and with it we can create weapons and armor stronger than bronze. This world, though, is full of magic, and these materials do not harness its power as well as we would like. Our enemies grow stronger, and we must adapt to defeat them. We must find something which can give us true power. Yggdrasil wood and ash wood These lie in the Mistlands and Ashlands respectively, and with them, we can build weapons of great power, as well as many new devices to make our journey easier. Yggdrasil wood comes from the Great World Tree, whose roots and branches we can see when we look to the sky. Ash wood is hardened by fire, and with it we can build mighty strongholds. This wood requires knowledge, though, how to cut it and how to shape it. It isn't enough just to know what it's called. The Norse knew that to build with wood, you needed to create wooden planks and boards, straight edges and consistent sizes to keep bending, warping, and cracking to a minimum. We might use saws to cut a whole log into various shapes and sizes, but there was, and remains, another way. Riving is the technique of splitting wood along the grain using hand tools. Then using axes and other shaping tools, it can be cut to a consistent size. This allows the carpenter to construct beams and boards using very simple tools, and with skill, it can reduce waste material as well. With iron and steel, a carpenter could have more specialized tools made, such as draw knives and chisels for more precise working and carving, and indeed, the Norse seem to have made use of these tools as well. Wood for ships has to be shaped to precise dimensions, and consistency is important. Warped and cracked wood at sea could mean disaster. Tools for drilling have also been found, and these allow wood to be joined by rivets or other methods to structures, or to be reinforced with metal components like a shield boss. Despite their knowledge of the trees and how to shape them, there's always been both a respect and fear of the forest. Forests are the dwelling places of gods and monsters, spirits and creatures who could help or harm. So it is in the 10th world also. With our axe, we can cut and shape the wood we find in the 10th world into many forms. With it, we also have to fight the creatures that live there when they trouble us. Grey dwarfs, trolls, the walking dead. We encounter them when we enter past the tree line and wander the places where they make their homes. Sometimes they come out of the dark in force, and then we must be prepared to defend ourselves. That said, our tools are simple ones. We can make machines and workbenches when we learn the secrets of these things, but our axe and hammer serve us throughout our journey. Our tools begin with stone, and then we make them from bronze, and then iron and other metals as we learn the ways of the 10th world. Our workbench and hammer allow us to carve and shape the wood we find into more intricate forms. With these skills, we can make all kinds of new items. Tankards, vessels, chests, and boxes. We can build stands upon which we hang our armor and shields, and, in time, we can craft weapons of greater power. Catapults and rams, for instance. All of these things with simple tools and knowledge. The Norse knew these things, and uncovered ways to use their tools to build homes and fortifications of all kinds. They built and maintained their houses and fortifications constantly. Their roofs kept the rain off for a time, but of course wood isn't proof against the elements forever. They knew how to protect their wood, though, by scorching it in fire, as we would to make things like barrels and casks. Their walls and beams were made from heavy timbers, and their roofs were curved like the undersides of ships. Later, they built upward, and we find examples of tiered and many-roofed buildings from the time. These techniques have been passed down through time, and we know many ways to create large structures. The 10th world, though it is a place of magic and strangeness, we must still follow the rules that we've learned. I'll do a video soon about the building system in Valheim. There are many different ways to build and materials to use, but for now, we will discuss wooden construction and carpentry. Now, gravity still works in the 10th world, and objects can't simply be piled atop one another haphazardly and expected to stay there. We must also keep our tools close at hand while we build. We can't be without a workbench in proximity, for instance, when making wooden structures, or a stone cutter if we have to work stone. There's freedom in what you can build, but you have to properly support your roofs and floors and buildings, or they'll fall down. Using your skills and knowledge in the building system, you'll see whether a structure is strong, or if a part of your building is too far from the pieces anchored to the ground, you'll not be able to build it. You have to add more support, and for this, you have to ensure that the ground is level and will support your structure. It's also true that, just like our own world, rain and weather in the 10th world can wear down wood and cause it to become aged. Wood that's exposed to the weather for too long without protection will lose its strength. Unprotected structures will fall more quickly and need to be repaired more often. When building walls and doors and floors and ladders, platforms and places to stand, battlements and such, you have to learn how to protect them from the elements so this doesn't happen. Angled and shingled roofs allow rain to fall away without soaking the wood and causing it to weather. Likewise, they stop the sun's heat from causing it to become bleached and cracked. Learn these secrets, and your buildings and fortifications will protect you. Of course, having a big empty house with no ornamentation is boring. It's against the fundamental nature of living to not make art of some kind. Wooden items were not just made to be functional, they were covered with intricate carvings and symbols that had both cultural meaning and mystical powers. Themes of animals and spirits, gods, monsters, and stories were carved and sculpted in wood to adorn homes and fortresses. Their shapes conveyed messages as well. The snarling faces of dragons caused enemies to fear the ships coming in through the fog. Carvings of gods were made to show reverence for protection and favor. Spells carved in various scripts were believed to infer power to the owner of an item, whether for defensive or offensive purposes. The more skill and precision used to craft a sculpted object could also be a sign of prestige, a show of wealth, power of a more material type. Delicate knotwork and twisting forest motifs covered not just ceremonial items, but everyday items as well. Chests and boxes were decorated and in some cases protected by runes and carved creatures. Beams and structures were engraved with scenes and stories. The techniques and art of the culture were informed by their stories and used those stories to great effect both in extraordinary situations as well as in everyday life. The 10th world is one of stories and myths, and it may be that these carvings have greater significance here than in the more tangible realms. Items made from all materials in this place take on strange forms that, in some cases, resemble the roots of their magic. Weapons made from wood and metal seem mundane, though as we begin to construct with more magical materials, that will change. Twisted and knotted wood, shining flaming metal, eyes, and glowing crystals all have power here. Staves of wood allow us to channel elemental magic in various ways. We have to use special woods to make these items, however. Simple furnishings can keep us alive and warm in this difficult land, but once we learn to craft more intricate items, we feel at home and our rest is increased greatly between battles. From beds with dragons carved into the posts to the mighty Raven Throne, we can build a place where a warrior can truly feel at home. Of course, we can also craft longships with dragons carved on the front and make our way across the sea to new lands. The carvings and sculptures we create in the 10th world and in our own world reflect our ideas about the world around us, about the material and the immaterial, how the world works, and how the things we can't see influence us as well. The image of the tree is so important in the old stories that a tree was used to describe the world itself. Yggdrasil is the name of the world tree, along whose form the various layers of the world exist. The layer on which the people lived, and that inhabited by the gods themselves, all exist on the world tree. As I mentioned earlier, Yggdrasil was described as an ash tree. It was immeasurably vast, and its roots plunged deep into the underworld. It's both metaphor and reality in varying degrees to those who see the world this way. One's mileage may vary with interpretation. By understanding the tree, we can understand this point of view about life and existence. Trees transport water and sap through their roots and stems. Their trunks are strong and hold up their many branches which grow in every direction. Each tree is host to countless lives and, over its lifetime, will be the source of many stories. We climb trees to get closer to the sky, and we fall down them and look up. So it is with gods, humans, giants, and monsters. Yggdrasil hosts the living worlds, and we can go up or down depending on our skill and actions. Gods look down from the high branches, the dead look up from the roots, and us, well, we live in between, both up and down. If we look up in the sky from the ground here in the 10th world, we can see the twisting roots of Yggdrasil stretching down from the sky. They're shrouded in mist and surrounded by clouds. This world is so deep that it sits outside the cosmological order of the other 9 realms of the world tree. Yet even here, its roots reach us. Deep in the mistlands can we find them and tap into them to get sap, a magical liquid that can be refined to produce some of the powerful weapons and tools we'll need later in our journey. We can use this substance to brew special meads and foods that will grant us protection and power as we encounter greater dangers. We in Valheim were once anchored to the tree more securely before the god Odin severed that connection. This place now exists as a prison, a place where the Forsaken remain forever. These enemies of Odin and the gods can both help and hinder our journey. The most powerful among them can be summoned using rituals, and by defeating them, we gain power that allows us to grow stronger. They're a source of magic and resources as well. From their corpses, we can craft new tools and equipment that we'll need to survive. That's why we're here. Fallen in battle, we've been sent by Odin to test ourselves against these creatures. If we succeed, we'll be granted entry to Valhalla, welcomed as mighty warriors. That's a place so high up the tree that we can't even see its light when we look up. But if we're strong enough, we can one day get there. Trees and wood have always been important for what they give us. from wood, fruit, sap, as well as playing host to life so that our environment doesn't die. They also play a pivotal role in our art and culture, both of old and in modern times. We still carve wood into all kinds of things, from decorative statues to useful items like furniture. In Valheim, wood has a mythology all its own, and we have to learn what it is and how it works to survive. We'll need to make tools and weapons, defenses, and protective structures from it, and if we don't manage it well, we won't last long. If we don't respect the forests of the 10th world, we'll be destroyed by those who live there. If we aren't careful in how we harvest wood from these places, we'll be crushed by falling logs or thrown aside by the mighty Forsaken. We learn to build the rudiments of life, and then we make carts and ships to go exploring. We carve finely wrought items, and with them make our way across the magical realm. Much the same way we do in our own strange world. Well, that's my video on carpentry and forest lore in Valheim. I've done a lot of carpentry and wood carving in my life, and I really enjoy it. I like seeing it perceived and experienced through other cultures and interpretations. I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate everyone who sticks around. If you liked the video, please hit like, and if you want to prevent Grey Dwarf brutes from knocking down your walls, hit subscribe. If you can think of anything you want to add, let me know in the comments. Oh, and before you go, shout out to my patrons who help support the channel. Our $10 patron is Washuki at the artisan level. If you want to get your name in the credits, head on over and sign up. The Patreon link is in the description. You'll get access to an exclusive Discord as well. Also, some exclusive content I just put up. And remember, if a rampaging Forsaken is chasing you through the trees, don't get too close. It's an embarrassing way to die. Thank you all. Bye, Internet.